Welcome to another lovely episode of the Life and Recovery Podcast. If you find this entertaining, valuable, funny, sad, whatever makes you want to share it with somebody else that it might be helping, you can find this on Choice Recovery Path on YouTube or any of the streaming services that suit your fancy. So today, my name is Mark, by the way. We have anybody want to introduce yourself in no particular order?
I'm
Hi,
Keri.
Elise.
I'm Keri with
Hi,
a
Keri.
K.
Hi, Gary with a K. I'm Elise.
What is
Hi.
up? So, as always, we always start, thinking about what's going on in anybody's life at the individual time. We were talking about this a little bit before, but the reality of most of these conversations is a lot of times people think they're alone in whatever situations they're going through. And speaking our truth about whatever's going on is probably helpful for us, but it's also helpful for somebody else out there that probably feels like they may be alone in whatever situation they're going through. So, what's up in you guys' life?
hmm Lots of digging into patterns that
Patterns.
arise out of the past events that um, lots of people call the fourth step in the recovery world.
Patterns out of things that arise from the past that basically are called the fourth step. What do you mean
Yes.
by patterns?
Um, it was kind of for me looking through interactions with people, organizations, aspects of my life where I see, oh, that's repeating itself. Either I'm doing the same thing or going to the same places, surrounding myself by the same people, and having and continuing to have negative outcomes. So, kind of like being an investigator into my past of like seeking out where are what are the common denominators here, because it'll help me figure out how to choose a new direction going forward.
Okay. So for people that don't know, what is the fourth step?
Oh, it's just like this giant garbage can of your life where um it's it's called an inventory or a moral inventory, but it's basically taking stock as a company would do an inventory, taking stock of what you've got. and uh
What you've
and
got? What do you mean? What you've got?
um
What you've
in the
got to deal with?
in the fourth step, the stock specifically is what are your resentments? What have your abuse, your trauma, your fear, um, what I would normally put in the garbage can because it's things I don't like, right? But it's there. It's a part of my life. It's my history. It's things that have happened. It's things that have affected me and the way I behave and react today.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a lot in that. Okay. Keri, what's going on in your world these days?
Pretty much the same. I'm in 3/4 through working a 4 step, and I was listening to Elise describe the 4 step. And for it is an inventory, right? And I'm currently on this inventory. The first one after I came back from a relapse, and getting 1,000% honest about my behavior in relationships, what resentments I have, the fears, um, abuse, or whatever. Like she called it the garbage can. For me, it's like I'm fine. I feel like I'm finally digging up real truths because I don't have anything to hide anymore. So I'm feeling freedom from working through this, but it also feels really gross because being clean now for almost 2 years since I've been back after my relapse, I'm like, who is that person from 2 years ago, right? So I feel kind of icky because I don't treat people like that. I don't lie every day. It's not one of those things that I don't have any. I had to dig up resentments, but then when you start writing on the first one, oh my God, I have a resentment for this or for this person or for that. But I feel like I'm doing the moral inventory of me and not placing blame on others right now. And I haven't gotten into the relationship part where I feel like I could do the blame game, but my whole life I've never really done the blame game. I've always taken responsibility for my own actions. And that might have to do with that I grew up in the rooms of narcotics, like the 12 steps, and for 30 years I've lived life with spiritual principles and then chose to go out and came back. But I also feel like I was living this fake life for a long time when I was out there and nobody knew I was using. So now I'm digging up, why did I want this fake life? Why was I portraying that I was clean? Why was I, like, the big question mark, why was I doing that? And this inventory is coming up with a lot of answers to all the whys. So that's where I'm at today.
So a little context for people who may not know you. What were you mentioned who you were 2 years ago. Do you have a little window into what that looks like?
Where I was 2 years ago?
I mean, who were you 2 years ago at that
Well,
stage?
2 years ago, I was working at my dream job, working in recovery with people that were clean. I had been using for 10 and a half years and nobody knew about it. I was keeping the deep, dark secret, maintaining like I had this life of recovery. And then right before I decided to get honest and surrender, and I chose life because I knew that path was leading me down the road to death. And so when I chose life, I decided that I was going to do everything I did differently when I was actively a member in this 12-step fellowship that I'm in, So, and that's where I was at. I was the weekend before I did go to treatment. I never went to treatment before. So I went to treatment. I did 9 months of outpatient. I was just willing to do everything different, And then I haven't missed a meeting in 22 months and 15 days. I'm not who's counting, who's counting. But I had over 18, almost 20 years clean and went out and stayed out for 10 years. So this, I believe this
kept the veil of like, I'm still clean up.
Say that again. Say that again.
You kept up the illusion that I'm still clean to the outside world?
Yes. Everybody in my life thought I was clean for over a decade.
How stressful was that?
It was a very dark place. It was a full-time job to keep that. It was a full-time job to keep my secret alive.
Yeah. It's crazy how easy that is to, to slide into these dual, like we have a tool in the book called the double life, which is basically how second nature it is for addicts to keep these dual personas up. Because the reality is, like, if you're using addict, everybody does that because you can't be honest about who you are. You always keep this, there's the life that I'm actually living. And then there's the one I want the world to see. Right. And they're usually quite different. And
way different. Yeah. I had to be clean to work where I worked. And I live with, and in a relationship with somebody that has over 4.5 decades clean. And to be with him, I'd have to maintain that I'm clean. I didn't even know who I was. They asked me the question when I came back in treatment, who is Keri? And I could not answer the question. At 49 years old, I could not answer who I was because I lived such a facade, just of this big fake bubble that I wanted everybody to think I had X amount of years clean and that I was fine and everything was great. And it wasn't. I almost drove off a cliff. It was bad. It was pretty bad.
So I asked you a second ago who you were 2 years ago. So let me ask you the question they asked you again today. Who are you today?
Oh my God, I'm totally different. I don't even recognize the person I was.
Describe that in detail, because not everybody here knows you. So
okay, so what that looks like is I am an active member in the fellowship that I choose to go to. I work the steps. I have a sponsor that's not in name only. I'm of service to that fellowship that I go to and attend meetings to. I'm kind. I have compassion for others. None of this existed before. Trust me. I mean, I know it's shocked. I had literally have compassion for others. Not only I was such a self-centered, self-seeking individual before, and it was always about me. Even with my kid, who I adore and I've put on a pedestal her whole life, it's like our relationship has changed. My relationship with my man has changed. I just, I'm no longer isolated in that, because I was down to 2 friends. Now I don't know how many friends I have today, which is crazy, right? Because the more people I had in my life was the more people I had to lie to. So I was down to 2 friends and my man and my kid, and that's what my life looks like today. And I still have a lot of guilt and shame for a lot of this stuff that I did over that decade that I was using and that I was lying to, and that's what's coming up in the 4-step, and that's why I think we're going to, talk about those kind of things that's coming up today in the 4-step.
Yeah.
But I believe I'm a kind, generous, giving person today, and I wasn't that 2 years ago or whatever.
You brought up something that was kind of important to me in my time in recovery. Was you said you still have a lot of guilt and shame. What's the difference between those two? What's the difference between guilt and shame? Ever
Yeah,
thought about it?
the shame's not real. That's what I've done. But what's the difference? I couldn't tell you what the difference is right now. I mean,
Okay.
I still group them together. You want to tell me what the difference is?
Well, I had a therapist in early recovery kind of show me the difference, because, so guilt would be like saying I made a mistake. But, if I were to come to you and, oh, you fucked that up. Oh God, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And this happens to very well coordinate with the 4-step as well. So guilt would be like saying I made a mistake. Shame is like saying I am a mistake. One is a reflection on something I've done or an action that I've taken. The other one is a reflection on who I am as a person. And that there's a very big difference in the two. Because I remember sitting talking to a therapist one time when, because I had fucked up so long. I was just like, I just must be a piece of shit. I just must be a fuck up. She's like, hold on, Mark. And I'm like, what? Why? Why should it matter? Because like guilt is actually, let me put this in there. Guilt is actually a good thing. It can be a good thing, because guilt is me holding up what I did against who I want to be. And if they don't weigh out, I could do something different. So it can actually be a positive thing in the long run. Where shame is me saying, oh, I am a piece of shit. So what do you do with that? When I see myself as the problem, what do you do with that? Fucking shoot up, drink, fucking I get high. Where guilt can actually give me a different direction to go in. So she was talking to me and she said, Mark, you're not a piece of shit. And I'm like, why? I've been doing shitty things my whole life. And she said, okay, I'll give you some credit. You fucked some things up in your day, but that's not who you are. I was like, why not? She's like, well, if we were to use your definition that you are what you do, what if you stop making those mistakes? Wouldn't that also in turn be who you are? So now we're dealing with actions instead of an internal narrative. And it really just shifted. I don't know if it's just me, but it shifted the way I saw myself. It shifted the difference to know that I am not my mistakes. I truly, 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 deeply believe that none of us are our past, that we should not be defined by the worst things we've ever done, And so, I think a lot of our past things are actually beneficial, but, so you guys have brought up the 4-step. So Elise talks about it like a big trash can. I've always thought about it like kind of like a backpack. It's like every one of the experiences you have in your life. Ooh, like that. Keep throwing it in this backpack you're carrying around until you're just carrying this big, heavy bag of shit around. That, to me, the cool part is the 4-step is I get to set it down and I get to pull things out one at a time. Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I guess a son of a bitch. Oh yeah, this. Oh, and then you start looking and unpacking all those things. And the beneficial part about that is, and then I say it out loud to someone else, is I don't have to put it back on. I don't have to pick up that big bag of shit. It's not like I'm gonna forget any of it, but it gives me a way to kind of separate who I once was from the person that I want to be and I am now. Kind of. So what's been your experience, Elise, with the 4-step so far?
Well, I'm doing it a different way, with a different sponsor this time than before, um, which I'm enjoying because it gives me like a little bit, a little bit different perspective on how to look at it all. I'm also doing it on something different.
So for context, tell me the those two, you said one way to the other way. I don't know either way. So how'd you do it one way and why is this different?
So, the first time, it was more of just one question, after another in different areas of my life. And this one, she's having me do, I write about my self-esteem around the resentment. So like, I am a piece of shit, like whatever my beliefs are. And then it's like, another aspect for each resentment that I write is, um, security. Like, what did I need here? What do I need to be okay? So if it's like a relationship, then it's, I need support. I need honesty. I need validation or whatever. Um, and then I am putting my ambitions. Like, what did I desire out of this? Um, if I am resentful toward an old job and didn't feel like I was respected, then I would put something like, um, I desire to be respected. And it's all these like, I need, I am, I want, I should. I'm kind of like going over all of my beliefs in regards to whatever I listed. And it's it's really cool. I really like it. So it'll start out with me talking about fuck this and yeah yeah yeah. And then I realize like all the like you were talking about the narrative, right? The self-narrative. Then I start looking at all the narratives, whether good or bad, whether honest or distorted. It's just all laid out for me. So I got kind of get to see where I am. Like, wow, I really feel like a piece of shit from this still. That's wild. Because the honesty for me comes out in the writing.
Okay. Keri, I always love to listen to other people's perspectives of all of these steps and processes. So what's your tasks in the 4-step then?
Well, I'm working out a workbook with a lot of questions and different topics, and the one that I just put down before I got onto this call was fear and then resentments. And I think, and I was telling Elise before that I used to walk around like I'm not afraid of anything, right? I have no fears, right? Until you put pen to paper, right? What are you really afraid of? And then I'm like, I don't have any resentments. Like, no way, life is fabulous. Nobody makes me mad, right? Or I'm not mad at anything. Nobody did anything to me because I take all the blame because I am the piece of shit and I don't have any resentments towards anyone. And then you put pen to paper, and what comes to light is there's a lot there, that I have pushed down for years and years and years because I didn't want to look at it and I wasn't willing to look at it. So what's coming up now is that, and then I think the final section of have all these questions is on relationships, which is not that I'm avoiding, but it's, I've had a lot of relationships in the long time I've been alive, which ones do I want to look at and which ones do I want to be completely 100% honest with? It's like, why even put it down on paper if you're not going to be honest, right? And part of working the 4-step is not thinking about the next step, which is the 5th step, where you share it with another human being. You're writing down you. you're only doing a disservice to yourself if you're not being completely honest. And when you were talking about that backpack, I remember the first time I shared after I came back, it was like taking off that 900-pound backpack I've been carrying around for years because I was lying to everyone and myself. And that's how I feel right now is like, yes, that backpack, I had to put it back on so I could identify what's in the backpack and put it on paper, so that's where I'm at right now,
Yeah. Okay.
with my process.
Yeah. I mean, I ask because everybody hears how this step is just doom and and it's terrible. The best advice I got from a sponsor for this was like, keep moving. Like what you put here next time may be different, but be thorough, but keep moving, push through it.
Right.
Simple idea. If you got to walk through hell, don't stand still.
Definitely.
Keep hauling ass with this, and then because it's cool, because then you can get into the fifth step where you say it out loud, and 6 and 7 where you actually deal with the reasons you did all that shit to begin with, which is kind of cool, but not to go down that whole rabbit hole. And not making this a meeting by any means, but
Yeah.
you brought up earlier life on life's terms. What does that mean to you? Or say more.
Who?
Well, Keri, you brought up when we were talking a little bit before we got going. Sorry, I should put some context to this. You brought up dealing with life on life's terms, or what does that mean?
When I mentioned that, it was in context of the grief that I'm going through. It's my life on life's terms right now because I lost both my parents, who I wasn't really close to, but yet I feel like an orphan. And the life on life's terms is people wanting to instantly fix how I'm feeling if I'm having an emotion behind grief about my parents. And it's like, well, you weren't that close with them. And then, and I'm not putting judgment on the people that I talk to, but a lot of people don't know what to say. A lot of people don't know what to say when you've lost your parents, especially so close together. And I'll speak for myself. I don't know what to say. Maybe just listening is the appropriate response instead of, oh, my thoughts and prayers are with you or whatever. But I don't get mad at their response. I get mad that they instantly want to fix how I'm feeling. Why can't I just cry about it? Even if I wasn't close to them, right? Even if I didn't do everything right, even if I was the bad person in this, parent daughter relationship, why can't I just feel? Why are people like, I know a lot of the people that I talk to fear that maybe I might relapse behind this because, hello, I relapsed with a lot of time. And so using is definitely an option, right? But it's the furthest thing from my mind. Now, not feeling is what I'm afraid of. Because once I choose whatever I want to put inside me to not feel, which is food recently, but I've been with someone for 21 years and he's loving and caring, but some days it's like, when are you gonna be over this? Like, hello, move on. Don't you know? And then that has a lot to do with him thinking and believing still that I am where I was when I was faking that I had all this clean time and recovery, and I didn't. So that's my life on life's terms today. Is
I remember you bringing up, talking about people that, there's just somebody talking about, it's kind of like an emotional fireman that, anytime you feel emotions, people want to come up and put it out, and it's like, it's super healthy to just fucking cry your ass off. Or, I think anyway, I lost my mom recently. Well, I keep saying that it's almost been 2 years now, but it's such a different process, I think, for everyone. I know Elise lost somebody recently. A couple years ago but it's different for everybody. And, when is the appropriate time? When do you not feel it? I don't know if you'll ever not feel, like I remember when it was my mom, she ended up with with brain cancer, and it was super quick, sudden, like 70 days from the day she got diagnosed to the day she passed. And certain weird things started stepping out. Like I remember when we were in Colorado and we're like, oh, well, just come up to my brother's house, which was in another city in Colorado Springs. And we're like, we'll just go up there for the week. So you'll be closer to doctors and everything. And we were pulling out of the driveway and I'm like, and something dawned on me, like, is this the last time she pulls out of her house? And it ended up being, and then the last time, and it just started to become this endless series of last events, things you've done 10,000 billion times in your life. The last time you go out to eat, the last time you put on your shoes, the last time you brush your teeth, the last was something that stood out to me, and then she passed and the service and all that. And then came all the firsts, like the first time you can't pick up the phone, or the first time a text message is one way and doesn't come back. Because I would still find myself sending a text with some, like, I know she's not there, but like some illusion that it would come back. The first birthday, the first Christmas, the first, and it's such a process to it that's so, like, to come through and just to know that, I don't think there's one right or wrong way to grieve. I don't know. Things said it was unstable. Hopefully,
Yeah, it was
you heard
unstable.
that, but
We're all unstable.
yeah. So I mean, it's just like I need that in my life. Unstable connections just flash here in my head most times.
Please avoid me now.
Please avoid me. I have an unstable connection with life. That'd be fucking hilarious.
In response to you, Mark, about that is that I don't know how to grieve. I've never lost anyone close to me. And ever think about it. I think about my grandparents I wasn't close with. Never lost anybody that close to me. And I mean like family wise, known people that have passed, but it's so final, right? It's final to me. It's like, now what? And they've always kind of been that net, like that, oh, Keri's fucking up again. Ooh, I can fall back in the net and I'll be okay. That security, knowing that net's not there. And I have one sibling and, she's in active addiction right now, has been her whole life, and not being able to fall onto her. And I want her to come my way. And I could just lead by example there, and I have led by example for many, many years. And she's not choosing the recovery life, and it sucks because I think she's going to go off the deep end. And that's my life on life's terms. Is my only sibling is choosing to use through her feelings, and I'm here talking to you guys. I'm just talking. It's like I'm getting it out and not keeping it inside and being honest about what I'm doing and what I'm not doing, and then having fear that I'm talking about it too much and I'm losing my friends and nobody wants to hang out with me because Keri's just going to talk about her dead parents, and that's all the insecurities that I have got going on in my head about it too. So then I shut down, and then the only person I talk to is the person close to me, which is my man, and then he's like, when are you going to get over it? So how do I grieve? Where am I?
Yeah.
Where am I with it all?
I mean, at least you may have a perspective on this, but to me, it was really like, I think it's really underutilized how important just sharing it is, whether you do it in a meeting or whether it's in a, like this or with friends or wherever, that even on the days when nothing's actually good, bad, or it's just getting things out on a regular basis. It's like this subtle pressure release valve. So things don't just build, because I mean, I'm hearing you and it's like, if I can't talk to them, well, because I have a story in my head about what they're already thinking and they don't want to hear it, which, by the way, may not be true. I would, challenge my own thinking on that. And now I'm left, and the circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller of where I can actually do that with, until one day, then the pressure gets relieved, whether I do it slowly or if it happens all at once.
Right.
And
I'm not going to shut up about it because I know that, I logically know that if I keep it inside, it's only going to do me much more harm than it is talking about it 4,000 times, you know?
Yeah. Elise,
So,
what was important to you in that process to, you may be a little further down that road than than both of us on that topic. What helped you in there?
I I agree with the pressure release valve. Sometimes it was sharing, but mostly it was it didn't matter really what it looked like, but it had to be once a day. So it seems kind of like scientific or like too organized or clinically, but I literally was like the end of each day, like this is my set aside time to grieve. And and it was really just sort of like allowing myself to feel. If I had a pretty good day, okay. But I just made that space for myself. And for a while, it was like, yeah, I get in my bed at night, it's the end of the day, and I cry. And I cry until there's no more crying to be had. And then I go to bed. And and like part of me would dread the end of the day, but then I started to feel comforted by my own crying. Like I knew I could feel it was healing. And so I'd actually like look forward to it. But if on the times where I tried to stay busy for like 3 days in a row and not do that at all, some something would somebody would say something sort of small maybe, but it would trigger me and I'd be like, bah, you know? And so I noticed that and I was like, okay, yeah, let's go back to like quiet time at night again. But I would just like bawl and cry and hold my dog. A friend got me like a candle and a fuzzy blankie. And so I would light the candle every night. And sometimes I would just like meditate on the flame, just stare at the flame. And like almost like I was just treating myself like a baby. I was just like soothing myself like I was a little helpless baby because that's how I felt,
Yeah. I
you
mean, I
know.
like that idea of just like a scheduled block in time that happens on a regular basis. Like this is my, cool. Like, I don't have to sit and try to avoid it all day, that that from 6 to 6:30 or whatever the slot is, that's my time to feel that.
Hmm.
But actually doing it and not avoiding it. That's a really interesting idea.
I think on the flip side, it helps too for you to get through the day because you're like, all right, I am struggling,
Mhm.
but at 6 o'clock, it's all coming out, right? So it's like
Mhm.
as things come up during the day, you're putting them on the shelf for 6 p.m., and it's like I'm, I'm not shutting it down, but I am putting it in a safe place just so I can like get through the day. And I know I'll get back to it later.
It's a really good idea. I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, it's trying to think what helped me the most. I mean, I think the biggest thing is like, so I had a very different experience with my dad to my mom. My dad, I was still using, and my stepmom was like, "Oh, we need you to show up. He died, and I need you to be here." Oh, I'll be there. Never showed up. Couldn't show up. Where with my mom, it was very different because I was, you know, years into recovery, and I had, she called, and I actually got to be there, and I got to be there for some part of it. Um, but to know that I was actually able to show up differently helped me somehow. We had some really cool conversations about, my mom and I were pretty tight. Like we had our own recovery. She went to a 12-step fellowship for us. She went to got involved in Narnan, and so we always had our her version of recovery in mind. But to come through, it was so sudden, and like I do remember, you know, that whole time and getting through it and coming home, and one of the newcomers in my home group was like, "Hey, dude, did you think about using?" And it kind of threw me off a little bit when he asked, but it dawned on me that in that entire time, no, I hadn't, you know, it didn't dawn on me once to go pick up. I crawled into a lot of meetings and I cried my eyes out to a bunch of fucking addicts who I never even knew. And I leaned on the people that could support me and that I knew were sponsorship and friends and close people, and basically let the program hold me up when I could not do it for myself. But it didn't even dawn on me. But I mean, it fucked with me for a couple of weeks on how did that actually happen? How did I not come to use or think about it even? And the only answer I've come to is that like all of the days that I showed up when it didn't really feel like it mattered that much, like recovery is really easy when shit's going your way, you know? So all those days when you show up when it doesn't matter may not feel like they matter that much, but they're kind of creating a reservoir, a reserve of strength that you're going to need on the days that it does. And it's like that long-term savings account of emotional stability that you're going to cash in when shit goes sideways. And Keri, it sounds like what you're doing now is like
I totally agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I don't think I could have gotten through this without doing what I've done for the past almost 2 years. There's no way. It's like I'm cashing it in,
Mhm.
And mine too was different between mom and dad. I had different relationships with them. My dad died with 41 years, in recovery, and my mother, had two addict kids and an alcoholic husband, and we weren't close, but until the last year, but she had dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, so there was really no real conversation. But I was thinking about this the other day because I grieve alone because I was telling you what I feel like I talk about it in meetings, but I believe I grieve alone, and I was thinking about this because there's nothing left unsaid between my parents and I, and there's freedom in that. I don't have any, you know, there's nothing left unsaid. Like I don't feel like, oh my God, I wish I would have said this. I wish I would have done that. They both saw me clean again, right? And my dad and I made amends, like 6 months before he passed. My mom, when she had all of her faculties, made amends, and we had a great discussion, and it didn't have to be like a whole years full of making amends, but I'm making a living amends right now by being clean. That I know. That I definitely know. And I did that while they were still alive. But what I get where I get so sad is that I was there the last moments of my mom, and so that memory I wish I didn't have. And I know a lot of people have different feelings about wanting to watch their parent transition. It was awful for me. I wake up in the middle of the night going like anxiety ridden over watching my mom take her last breaths, and then but I've shared this. I talk to people about it. It's not, I'm not holding anything in, but I think the freedom I feel today with their deaths is that there's nothing left unsaid. Like not everybody can say that, and I'm lucky that I'm blessed that I have that, And I'm sure some stuff's going to come out in writing, especially with this horse stuff when I get involved in the relationship aspects. But yeah, everything I've wanted them to say to me, they said to me. That's how I feel. Maybe not everything I've wanted to say to them, I said to them, but everything I've ever wanted my parents to say to me, like all that stuff I carried for so long, they said to me. And there's nothing left, So now I got to work on my part, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My parents loved me regardless, which I'm lucky there too. Regardless if I was using or not, they didn't. I never felt lack of love. That's for one thing, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Like the writing process is it's weird, and I am not a student by any means. And I used to despise writing and reading and having to deal with shit because I wasn't good at any of it. But I remember going uh years after the past, like my dad and my brother hadn't talked for a decade before they passed away. It's just dysfunctional relationships in our household a little bit. And, we were still acting the same way years after he had passed that we were when he was here. And it dawned on me one day, I'm like, what in the fuck are we doing, dude? Why are we still acting like this? Oh man, been dead for 3 years. Why are we still doing this shit? And went home, and I remember I got the idea, and I called him up. And I was like, hey, dude, meet me down. And there's a place called Ouray in Colorado, which is kind of halfway between here where he lives and I do. And there's rivers and fly fishing and vapor or hot springs and all sorts of cool shit. And I'm like, why don't you meet me in Ouray for the weekend? Let's have a funeral for dad. And he was like, wait, what? What are you talking about? I was like, I don't fucking know. Just meet me there. Worst case scenario, we'll go fishing for a weekend, hang out. He's like, okay. And we did. And we were out beside the river one day, and it was gorgeous and everything. And I had a yellow notepad with me. And I remember getting over on the side of the river, and he was out there fishing. And I don't know what made me think about this, but I just started writing like I was talking to him, my dad. And Dad, I'm in a very different place in my life now. When you passed, I love you for this. I hated you for that. You're a son of a bitch in these ways. You're good in this way. And just 3 pages, 4 pages, whatever it was, that just went on and on and on. And I called my brother and said, hey, come here. And I told him what I did. And I said, I want you to do the same thing. He's like, what? I mean, there's something to, going first, I guess. But he did the same thing. And the next day we went out and we basically read them out loud and, shredded them up and burned them. And it was so freeing. Just that getting it out of talking to somebody who's no longer here. You talked about the living amends a second ago, and what is that to you, by the way? What is living amends?
My living amends is because I always felt my mother didn't mother me. I'm a better mother to my kid, absolutely, today. And also by staying clean and working the program and being true to myself and being honest and being kind and being generous and having compassion, because I was so self-centered, and to change that part of me is my living amends, because I took and I took and I took from my parents, and they still gave. Like I said, they loved me whether I was using or not, whether it was codependency or not. They loved me, and they were just happy that I was clean again. It wasn't some tragic event that they decided they were never going to talk to me because I screwed up one more time. They were like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're back." Right? Not the response I thought that was going to happen, because they thought I was clean for so long. I thought they would be like, okay, we're never talking to you again, right? They were like, they welcomed me back with love, just like the members of the fellowship I belong to. They welcomed me back with love, which took me so long to get honest about it because I thought I was going to be left alone. So my living amends is being true to myself, being good to myself, being kind to others, because I wasn't kind. And I know that's probably hard to believe for people that know me today, but I wasn't. I lived in a dark, I literally, sunlight hurt my eyes when I got clean almost 2 years ago, because I lived in the dark. Lights had to be off. In my office, my light had to be dim. I didn't want to look in the mirror. There's all these things have changed,
Yeah.
and I know they're proud of me. They were proud of me before. They're proud of me now. And I think where I get sad is that the only vision I have now, maybe because it's so recent, is my mom gasping for air right before she died. I wouldn't want my kid to ever see me like that, ever.
Yeah.
And my dad and I got to make amends, which was amazing, because everything I ever wanted him to say, he said to me, and it was great. I'm so blessed. But yet I feel like I'm like an orphan now. Like I said, I really feel like, in my relationship I've been with for 21 years, he's 20 years older than me. And I'm like, oh my God, he's going to die. Like I have this vision of what am I going to do when he dies, But I know if I continue to do what I'm doing, right, and feeling the way that I'm feeling about my recovery, about what I'm doing for myself, that I'll be able to get through that too. If I don't die first, who knows? I'm just saying,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Please.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I really appreciate, like, a lot of times I ask questions that may seem obvious, like what's a living amends? Because, like, I remember coming in and I'd hear a lot of things, life on life turns and the living events, all this shit. I didn't know what the hell it meant. And so it just like I want to make it clear to people that, you know, the things I was too afraid to ask because I was too busy trying to act cool. You know, what does it mean to you, Elise?
Yeah, I think, you know, I shared on this a little bit. In the last episode, we were talking about mending or fixing, repairing things. Um, and uh, my main one has been repairing things today. And um I guess, the living amends is just the effects that the work and the energy that I put out today has on the universe. It's not whether it's, not necessarily direct, like an actual sit down. I'm sorry, I fucked up for X, Y, and Z, won't do it again, blah, blah, blah. But, the, you're talking about the difference between guilt and shame earlier too, and I think that has a lot to do with grief. I think it has a lot to do with and they all have a lot to do with the fourth step for me, but it's like I remember when I really the first time I understood what amends to myself looked like. Because I know what it's like to feel empathy and compassion and blah, blah, blah for other people, but I couldn't picture that experience with myself. And I remember I stumbled across an old video of me when I was in addiction with my ex, and like my voice was different. What I was talking about, how I was talking was different. Um, and it like I could hear my own voice and when I was watching the video, and I was just like, I was so sad for that girl. And it was a really cool experience because it was like me watching myself from this outside perspective, where if it had been anyone else, I would have been like that poor thing. And I was for me in old me. Like I got to see old me and feel that inside for me. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. Like the mending isn't the steps for me, it's not like self-improvement, right? Someone said this at a meeting the other night. What I just loved, I don't know if I can say it how she said it, but it was like, self-improvement is not self-compassion. It's saying there's still something within me that is not okay that I have to fix. And that's not what recovery is really about. It's really about like, how do I increase my self-compassion? Because recovery is really all about like coming into more and more acceptance with who I am today and each and every day. And so a lot of the amends is like, for me, it's finding compassion for myself and seeing like the little girl who acted out in all these ways because she was in pain.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I mean, I agree. I mean, to me, it's living differently now. I just, like, I think about, like when my dad passed or anybody that when I was using how I lived. And I can't change the way I was for him. He's gone, but I can absolutely live differently today. And I can live in an alignment with that the things I do are in alignment with who I'm trying to be, with who I want to be at least, and aspiring to always improve and I like that. So I really appreciate what you guys had to say today. We usually kind of wrap this up with some ideas, like one thing you took away from today that was kind of impactful. So for Elise, what was it for you?
Um, I think just, like each day I learned something, and even if something sounds like I want to avoid it, like guilt or shame or grief, like when I allow myself to like feel and accept and experience it, um, and seek a new perspective around it, I get to change it. I get to morph it. I get to transform what it means to me and like empower me to go forward instead of shoving it to the side because I think it's going to be icky, you know?
Sure. Keri, what was something that stood out to you today?
A few things. The difference between guilt and shame, the guilt being our behavior and the shame being the way we think about the guilt or think about the behavior. And then having, I'm always talking about being compassionate for others. I need to have compassion for myself and give myself a break and stop living in my head about what people think about my grief process because I have been there. I've been really insecure about talking about it because I think that I just talk about it too much, especially in meetings. But I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me, and and then also, feelings aren't facts for me. And while you guys were talking, I was like having a buffet of feelings about my parents and I don't know, the fourth step is I'm like right here, right, with all this stuff that I just need to get out. And I think I might feel different after I do the fifth step with my sponsor on Saturday. So, but yeah, I got a lot out of it. Thank you for asking me to come.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate it. I mean, I guess what stood out to me was the compassion piece as well, but like all of us talked about a narrative we have in our head about the world around us, which 99.9% of the time is not true. And then I've really got to just like really start challenging that in myself to be like, all right, dude, I know what you're saying, but there's probably very little truth behind that. And so having some compassion for myself in those areas, I think would be probably quite helpful because I am world class at kicking the shit out of me. But, I've got it's obviously a work in progress of getting better at it, but not the kicking my ass part, but the not doing it part. But, but that's what kind of stood out to me. So thank you guys so much. And if anybody else out there thought this was valuable or something you'd want to share with somebody, please feel free to go to Choice Recovery Path on YouTube and share it with somebody else. And thank you guys so much for your time. I love what you had to say. Have a great rest of your day.
All information and other content supplied or communicated in or through this video is for general informational purposes only and does not nor is intended to constitute legal or medical advice. Any viewer of this video should contact his or her own attorney, doctor, or other applicable advisor or practitioner to obtain legal, medical, or other applicable advice with respect to the accuracy, reliability, or potential application to such viewer of any matter discussed or portrayed in this video. Please do not act or refrain from acting in any way based on any information or content supplied or communicated in or through this video. The views expressed during this video are those of the individual presenters only and not those of Choice Recovery Path LLC or any of its customers, suppliers, or affiliates. Any liability with respect to actions taken or not taken by any viewer based on any information or content supplied or communicated in or through such video is hereby expressly disclaimed. All such information or content is expressly provided as is and free of any representation or warranty of any kind.